Hello and welcome to today's VMware webcast. Before we get started, there are a couple of housekeeping items that I would like to go over. First, we want to make this session as interactive as possible and encourage you to ask questions at any time using the question and answer box located to the left of the slides window. You can also use the question and answer box to get technical assistance if you should need it. The tabs located in the question and answer box are where you can find additional information about today's presentation. Today's presentation features streaming audio only, so there is no need to dial into a teleconference. You'll need to make sure that your computer speakers are turned up in order to hear the presenter and today's content. You can also fine-tune the audio by using the volume controls inside the media window. This presentation console allows you to interact and customize the layout to fit your viewing needs. You can collapse and expand any window on the console just like you would on your desktop by dragging the corners in or out. In addition, you can also maximize or close any of the windows on your screen by clicking the corresponding icon in the upper right-hand corner of each of the windows. At any time, you can reset the console to the default layout and access additional presentation functionality using the widgets at the bottom of your screen. Now I would like to turn things over to today's presenter to get things started.
Hello again. My name is Angela G. I am a Senior Product Line Manager with the End User Computing Group here at VMware. And thank you again for joining me as I talk about our Horizon 7 solution on VMware Cloud on AWS. Here's the agenda for today. First, I'll introduce Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud on AWS, as well as some of the key concepts. And then we'll talk about the use cases and why customers are using Horizon 7 on. And then we'll go into the key features for Horizon 7, both for On-Prem as well as on VMware Cloud and AWS. And then I'll finish by talking about some of the additional resources that are available to you. Before I start, let me actually first talk about VMware Cloud on AWS briefly. This is a partnership between VMware and AWS. And this is where VMware gets access to AWS's bare metal host. We then go in and deploy vCenter, vSphere, NSX, vSAN, all of the SDDC goodness on those bare metal hosts and packaged up as a service. And then VMware is the one who's supporting and running and operating the service. What's great about this particular service is that it's the same vSphere, vSAN, NSX software that's both running on-prem as well as on VC. So the ability to build a hybrid cloud is very seamless. And customers who also need to move their workloads from on-prem to the cloud can also do so very easily because it is the same architecture. And because it's running on AWS, the great thing about it is that VMware Cloud on AWS has the global reach of the AWS data centers. The goal is for all of the AWS data centers to be VMware VMC enabled, although that's going to take a little bit of time, but eventually, it's going to be a global footprint. So with that backdrop, let me talk about Horizon 7. Horizon 7 is essentially riding on the VMware Cloud on AWS infrastructure. The idea is that we take Horizon 7 and we've made it work on VMware VMC. And a couple of great things that customers really like about it. First is around the flexible cloud elasticity. Unlike deploying on-prem, the on-prem deployment requires capital investment. Whereas when you deploy on VMC, you don't have to purchase any hardware yourself. And so that gives you elasticity to be able to grow and to be able to run workloads when you need to. And as I touched upon earlier, the ability to build your own Horizon 7 hybrid cloud. You have a deployment of Horizon 7 on-prem and then have a deployment on VMware Cloud on AWS and actually connect those two via a technology called Cloud Pod Architecture, or CPA. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in the next slide. And then finally, as a lot of people know, a Horizon 7 deployment is an enterprise deployment, right? So there are many, many pieces when you deploy on-prem. And a lot of it is around how do you deploy vSphere and manage vSphere and networking, and then the storage. By outsourcing the deployment of Horizon 7, essentially on VMware Cloud and AWS, you can outsource a lot of the infrastructure management and lifecycle management of Horizon 7. And so that is also very attractive to customers. And then, plus the option for hourly billing, right, makes it very cost effective and can truly pay as you go with running Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud. Okay, so what is cloud pod architecture? And don't let that name fool you. There's actually nothing cloud about it. This actually came out probably about 8 years ago. It's been a standard part of Horizon 7 architecture for quite a long time. There are actually four key concepts of CPA. The first is federated. And what that means is the pods that are in the CPA federation know about each other, right? So this is essentially is a technology for federating and scaling up a Horizon 7 deployment. The second concept is around scale. So when you group a bunch of Horizon 7 pods together, you can actually get to greater scale. In fact, that's what a lot of large customers, when they deploy CPA on-prem, that's their purpose, which is to actually scale beyond just 10,000 desktops. And because the pods are in federation with each other and they all know about each other, you can now start creating global entitlement, right? So your users can be entitled either to a desktop on pod 1 or any other pod in the federation. And then you can build a disaster recovery solution out of the pod federation. So if the first pod is down, the user will be seamlessly logged in to the second pod, where the second pod could be the DR pod. And the fourth concept here is really around a single URL. When you use a load balancing technology across the different pods, you can actually have a single URL for your end users log into. So in the event that one site or one pod is down, the end user doesn't have to go to a separate URL. They can simply go back to the existing URL and be able to log in a DR or secondary. So again, CPA is a concept of pod federation. It can be used both on-prem as well as on VMware Cloud and AWS. It really doesn't. It's location agnostic. But when you use it to group an on-prem pod with a VMware Cloud on AWS pod, this is where you can have hybrid deployment. So let's look at the use cases. So here's a very, very high level depiction of how you may be able to get a global cloud burst deployment with Horizon CPA architecture. And here we have an on-prem pod that's sitting in Frankfurt, Germany. And then you can actually set up additional Horizon 7 pods in multiple AWS locations. There could be one in Sydney, Australia, one in Virginia, USA. And then you'll be able to connect all of them into a pod federation to be able to get that global cloud burst. All right. Now, as I promised, let's talk about use cases. So there are four main use cases that we are seeing customers deploy Horizon 7 on VMC for. The first one is around data center expansion. So this is where the customer has a cloud-first objective, or they want to expand, but they don't have any additional CapEx budget. So they can actually expand into VMware Cloud on AWS. The second is around disaster recovery and business continuity for the on-prem deployment, right? So they're using VMware Cloud on AWS data center as a secondary or DR site. The third use case is around temporary desktop and app capacity. So this is for customers who have summer interns, contractors, seasonal workers that only need to use their desktops for a few weeks or a few months out of the year. And so the hourly billing scheme on VMware Cloud on AWS is actually perfect for this particular use. And then finally, customers are also using VMware Cloud on AWS as a quick POC of on-prem Horizon 7 deployment. This is really because Horizon 7 works the same way, whether it's on-prem or on VMC, same architecture, right? So it's actually quite easy if you don't have on-prem hardware to be able to run a POC, to actually run it on VMware Cloud on AWS. Now, I'll touch upon in a little bit more detail around the data center expansion and disaster recovery use, just because these are the two biggest use cases, and there's been a lot of demand. So I think it's worth talking more about. The first use case is around a DR solution, right? Of course, it's not just getting any DR, but it's getting a lower cost DR solution. I think a lot of VDI customers have, really want to have a DR solution for their on-prem Horizon 7 VDI deployment. But the problem is that, a DR solution is actually very expensive. And so let's talk about how Horizon 7 can actually make that cheaper. Horizon 7 on VMC can make that cheaper. First of all, downtime events actually happen a lot more than you think. Right? In a survey that was done back in 2018, about 80% or 70% of the respondents actually said that there's been downtime in their data center within the last year. And then when downtime happens, it's also pretty expensive. So these bars actually show the estimated cost per day of downtime. It's separated out by all respondents or all customers as well as enterprise. And you can see, of course, it's used for enterprise customers, it tends to be more expensive. But even overall, for all customers, it is a pretty, downtime is pretty expensive on a cost per day basis. And if you're racking up multiple days of downtime, that gets even more expensive. Now, how do we leverage CPA and Horizon 7 to deliver low-cost DR for desktop, right? The idea here is, again, going back to the basic of CPA, that we want to stretch CPA between on-prem sites and AWS. And you can also do this between multiple AWS locations, right? Like I said, CPA is really agnostic, location agnostic. And so when you do that, now the primary site and the secondary site that's on VMC are now in a federation. Now on VMC, what you want to do is maintain a pilot light. And the pilot light essentially contains Horizon infrastructure that you deployed, any golden images that you will be using to create more desktops, and then you want to start off with a small pool of capacity. And the small pool of capacity would essentially be available right away as soon as your primary site goes down, right? And then, by the way, when I say capacity, I mean small pool virtual desktop. So when the primary desktops fail, and then users who are logged into the primary desktop will get kicked off of their virtual desktop. When they try to log in again using that single URL that I mentioned earlier, they'll actually be automatically redirected to the Horizon 7 deployment on VMware Cloud on AWS. And if there's an available desktop, they can log into that desktop. Now, of course, we've only kept a small pool of capacity around, a small pool of desktops around. And so, if lots of users log in, you're bound to run out of desktops, right? So we have a on-demand creation technology of instant clone as well as hosts that can be automatically kicked off when there's a failover event, right? So as more users log in, more desktops will be. And then, of course, whenever you think about VDI, right, one of the key aspects to consider in the design is file share, right? Or user data. Where are you going to store the user data? Now, of course, for a lot of customers, the user data does not need to be available in the event of a bug, right? Because it's a extreme, unusual circumstance, and then some customers are okay with their user not having access to their user profile, user data. But most customers would want the user to have access to, either a user profile or some user data, even during the DR event. So in those cases, what would be important is to actually replicate the user data between the on-prem data center as well as your Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud on AWS, right? And you can either stand up your own file share service or you can use one of the AWS file share services. And then this just talks about sort of the savings, the economic advantage of DR. For a particular customer that has deployed on-prem, Horizon 7 on-prem, and as well as for DR, right? By switching to putting the DR into VMware Cloud and AWS, they were able to save about 40%, almost 45% of the original cost of the previous cost. So there's a lot of savings, and mainly it's because, let's go back to the previous slide. Just wanted to emphasize, it's really because you're only paying for the pilot light on a year-round basis, right? And and when you need that DR capacity, that full DR capacity, then the desktops grow, the hosts grow, and then you're paying for that incremental cost, but only for the days or weeks when you actually need that DR capacity, and that's where really the saving comes from. All right, let's talk about the second use case, which is extending your data center. Again, the diagram is very familiar because it's the exact same technology that enables DR also enables data center extension. And so again, we're stretching CPA between the VMware Cloud on AWS data center as well as your on-prem production data center, right? And because these two pods, these two data centers are in the same federation, you can actually manage those two data centers in concert. So the benefit of using VMC to extend your Horizon 7 deployment is that fast cloud scalability, right? You don't have to invest in additional capex investment or data center building costs. The VMC capacity is highly flexible as well as highly available. And if you are using CPA to deploy multiple pods across multiple availability zones, you're adding that extra layer of availability for your Horizon 7 infrastructure as well. One thing that I do want to mention, because a lot of our customers have fallen into this pitfall, which is when you are extending your on-prem Horizon 7, right, you're moving some capacity or virtual desktops permanently to VMC. What you want to do is also co-locate the application, right? Because the last thing you want to do is have a bunch of applications that remain on-prem and then have your virtual desktop sitting in VMC. So such a project will probably fail just because the latency tolerance between the two sites, may be more than what some applications handle. And so when you're designing your data center extension using VMC, thinking about that, always make sure to think about your applications first. Where will they be located? And then you move your desktop, not the other way around. Now, when we were talking about DR, that wasn't such an important aspect, just because for DR, you're only using it temporarily. You're only using it for, a short period of time. So, DR capacity, DR virtual desktop users can tolerate a longer latency. But when it's primary desktop, right, you want to make sure that the latency is, is as short as you can get to. All right, and then longer term, I think a lot of customers have a cloud-first strategy or cloud-only strategy, right? And so there's a lot of benefits. I don't have to tell you guys that there's a lot of benefits in moving to the cloud. And what's great about VMC, the VMware Cloud on AWS technology, and Horizon 7 on VMC is that it's a very flexible approach, right? We don't really think about cloud as a destination. It's that everything going from on-prem to cloud. To us, it's more like a strategy. The strategy really is to support this, dual scenario, right? So there are customers that are doing a one-way journey. They're moving all their virtual desktops as well as applications and infrastructure from their private on-prem cloud to a single cloud provider, right? Let's say AWS, right? So we certainly support that. But a lot of customers really want that flexible strategy where they build a common platform out of their existing private cloud as well as, cloud providers, right? So they want to be able to move workloads back and forth. They want to be able to have both types of capacity, private as well as public clouds, in their portfolio of IT service, right? And so that's what I think is really special and really great about VMC as well as Horizon 7 on VMC, because we enable you to do both, whether you see the cloud as a single one-way destination or a flexible, two-way back and forth platform strategy. Okay, so let's switch gear and talk a little bit more about the specific product features, right? And so as of last November, we've reached general availability of some of the key technologies or key features that our Horizon 7 customers are looking for on VMware Cloud and AWS. We did have to make a little bit of changes in our code. And so as of right now, or as of November, we now support Instant Clone, App Volume, and UEM, our User Environment Manager, on VMware Cloud on AWS. Now, for those of you who don't really know much about these technologies, they're a part of our JUMP or just-in-time product portfolio. These are actually features of Horizon 7 and features of the Horizon Enterprise. What they allow you to do is three things, right? Simplified management. Instant clones can be used to very quickly provision stateless desktops. And this is a next generation technology from after our link clone technology. So if you're familiar with link clone, instant clone can also be used to provision stateless desktops. But it has some very interesting attributes that make it perfect for cloud deployment. The first thing is that it can be created very quickly, right? And because it can be created very quickly, we can also get to a point where we can actually do a rolling desktop patch. So what happens is that every time the user logs off of a stateless desktop, instead of actually refreshing the desktop, we simply delete that desktop and recreate that desktop or clone from the most updated golden image, right? Because the cloning creation is so fast. And so now think of a scenario where you're patching a pool of desktops. So instead of kind of taking the entire desktop pool down and wait for several hours for all the clones to be provisioned, you can simply do a rolling patching where you prepare a golden image and then you start pushing that image through the pool. And then as users log out and then log back in, the desktop that they're using is now automatically patched to the latest golden image, right? With that, you can actually patch a pool of desktop without any downtime whatsoever. So that's a feature that our customers really, really love, both on-prem as well as on VMware Cloud and AWS. Now, instant clones are stateless desktops, right? So there are use cases where customers need to have applications, they need to have user customization, they need to have user data. And so this is where App Volume and User Environment Manager. App Volume can be used to deliver applications very effectively, efficiently across a huge number of stateless instant clone desktops. And then User Environment Manager can actually be used to customize each instant clone to the user's profile or specification when a particular user logs. So very powerful technologies, with those three working together. And then I should also mention, just like link clone, instant clone is also very space efficient. So instant clones all share a base image and plus a delta that's different for each instant clone. And so, from all of the customer usage as well as our lab tests, we're seeing storage reduction of up to 80%, sometimes 90%, depending on how much user profile data the customers have. And so it's a pretty large storage saving when you use instant clone. All right, let me talk about the rest of Horizon 7 and App Volume and UEM. So we are at this point at feature parity between on-prem Horizon 7 and Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS, right? So I'll say there's a little asterisk, and I'll talk about that. But for the most part, whatever works on-prem works the same way on VMware Cloud and AWS. Now, going forward, because there's a lot of features that Horizon 7 has, right, we've decided to use a blacklist approach. And what that means is, unless explicitly listed, any Horizon 7 feature is and will be supported on VMC, right? So you don't have to worry about anytime you're using Horizon 7 on VMC, you don't have to worry about, is this supported, right? You just have to look up, and this is always going to be documented in the KB. It's this very simple table, right? If it's not in this table, then it's supported. So let's talk about this table. So there's a few items that have yet to be supported, but it's on our roadmap, and we expect all of them to be supported by the end of 2020. Things like IPv6, FIPS support, and then VTPM, vGPU, those require support on the VMC platform, right? So all of these are expected to be available sometime in 2019. And then there are several features, I would say, that we are going to be deprecating. So that's why they're not going to be supported on VMware Cloud and AWS. So View Composer, link clone, it's older technology, right? And so we don't intend to ever support it on VMware Cloud and AWS. In fact, there's a roadmap to actually deprecate it on-prem as well. So that is not supported. Content-based read cache, or CBRC. CBRC on-prem actually provides great performance boost for virtual desktops. On VMC, it's not supported simply because it's actually not needed. So we've done a lot of performance testing, and from also customers' experience, CBRC doesn't actually add to the performance of the Horizon 7 deployment on VMC. And I think it's because the VMC, the host instance on VMC is actually quite powerful. So any incremental benefit from a read cache is just not that significant. We're also deprecating security server, and so that's not going to be supported on VMC. You should be using UAG or Unified Access Gateway instead. And then unmanaged desktop, vVol, VCAI, those are technologies that are still present and supported on-prem, but they're actually just not applicable for VMC. Persona management, again, is something that we're going to be deprecating in the next year or so. Not supported on VMC. We advise customers to use User Environment Manager instead. And then finally, Jump V1. For those of you who know that about Jump V1, Jump Server V1, Jump is a very important part of our portfolio, so we're certainly not deprecating that. But the Jump Server, that's the on-prem deployment, will not be supported simply because the roadmap for Jump has changed, and we've actually moved all of that to a cloud control. So this is a pretty short list. Everything else that you know and love about Horizon 7 that you don't see on this list is supported on VMware Cloud and AWS. Let me just pause a little bit. I know that there's actually a lot of questions. Since it's just me, so I'm going to finish the presentation and I'll get to the questions. I promise I will. Talk about our cloud control plane. I alluded to earlier that the jump technology or jump platform is actually moving to the cloud control plane. So I want to talk about what that actually means for Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS. Now, the cloud control plane, also known as the Horizon Cloud Management Console, is actually a cloud control plane that sits in a public cloud. Incidentally, it actually sits in AWS. And this is actually used, for those of you who know about our other cloud offering, our Horizon Cloud service, that's the control plane for the Horizon Cloud service. So what we've done is actually bring Horizon 7 technology into the fold of the Horizon Cloud service and the Horizon Cloud Management Console. And that Horizon Cloud Management Console will effectively become that single console across all the different VMware VDI offerings, right? Whether it's on-prem or on cloud. The new technology that enables this is called Cloud Connector. The Cloud Connector is an OVA that is part of Horizon 7. And then when you download it and you deploy it, it effectively connects any Horizon 7 deployment, whether it's on-prem or on VMware Cloud on AWS, with the Horizon Cloud Management Console, right? So with that, now the Horizon Cloud Management Console now has that single pane of glass. It has global visibility across all of your Horizon 7 deployments, whether you're deploying on-prem or you're deploying on VMware Cloud and AWS. And we're also adding a lot of additional features, right? So all of the jump just-in-time technology, the just-in-time workflows around the desktop and app management, right, are now moving to the Horizon Cloud console. And because it's sitting in that common control plane, you can actually now have desktop entitlements, assignments across multiple pods and multiple locations, multiple clouds. With that, you can with the common control plane, we can also now do things like automated installation of Horizon 7 infrastructure. And that's first going to be available on Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS, right? So today, if you were to deploy Horizon 7 on VMC, there's actually a automated installation tool that will enable you to do that. And then going forward, there'll be additional services that are going to be enabled on the cloud control plane that will be available for Horizon 7 on VMC. Service updates and infrastructure updates, right? So, now that you can automatically install Horizon 7 infrastructure, right, the infrastructure components, like the connection servers, UAG, app volume, will also allow you to automatically upgrade. As some of you know, that the upgrade process for Horizon 7, is pretty lengthy, right? So the service updates, infrastructure updates will actually reduce the amount of time it takes and reduce the error rate of any upgrade process for Horizon 7. There'll also be monitoring and analytics, right? So not only will there be monitoring analytics for your particular Horizon pod, but you can now see the monitoring and then any analytics across all the pods in the federation that's under management by the Horizon Cloud Management Console, right? And then followed by license management as well as looking at the system health, right? The last piece is really important. I've heard so much from our enterprise customers, especially large enterprise customers that have like 20, 25 pods, where they have to log into each pod today to look at the system health. Well, with this Horizon Cloud Management Console, they can see it all in a single plane. So that really is the power of the Horizon Cloud Management. All right, so let's move forward. And okay, so I've talked about Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud on AWS as being awesome. And I really encourage all customers to try it out. But one thing I do want to make sure you understand is it is a customer managed solution on IaaS, right? So I talked about deploying Horizon 7 infrastructure. That's still the responsibility of the customer. So I wanted to point out the difference between Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud on AWS as it exists today and our DaaS solution, which is Horizon Cloud, right? On the left side, so it's really where the demarcation line is between what is being managed by the service and what is being managed by the tenant or the customer. For the Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud on AWS solution, VMware manages the VMware Cloud on AWS portion, right? That's a managed service. But the customer is responsible for deploying and managing the lifecycle of their Horizon 7 infrastructure components, as well as any desktops and RDSH farms. If you go to the right, that's a DaaS model, right? This is our Horizon Cloud on software or Azure solution. So if you're familiar with it, right, VMware actually manages more. So in this case, VMware also manages the Horizon Cloud infrastructure as well. And all the customer and the tenant has to manage RDSH farms and or desktop pools. Right? So it's pretty different. So when you deploy Horizon 7 on VMC, you are responsible for your own infrastructure. Now, I'm sure the question that a lot of you are thinking is that when are you guys going to launch a Horizon 7 DaaS service on VMC? Well, we are working on that. So if you go to the VMC public roadmap, you'll actually see a line item there. So we are working to bring about a true DaaS service with Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud and AWS. We won't go into the details today. We're still in the planning phase, but that is coming. And then finally, so this is actually my last slide before I get to the Q&A. So there are actually 3 or 4 sets of collaterals available for you. There's a deployment guide that's publicly available. So if you're deploying Horizon 7 on VMC, I encourage you to take a look at it. And then we make periodic updates, but the deployment guide actually goes through, at least at the very high level, how you should be designing, thinking about the different aspects of Horizon 7 on VMC. Supportability KB, so that table that I showed you actually was taken out of the supportability KB. So, I would bookmark it and then, always go back to that supportability KB. With every release of VMC and every release of Horizon 7, we try to keep the supportability updated, and that contains sort of the one place where you can see what is supported and what is not. There's also a PSO service available should you need it. And then, and there is a URL where you can actually find a lot of the links, these collaterals, as well as any other solution briefing, which I didn't separately list. So that's the URL at the bottom. So this is the end of my presentation slides. So let's actually take a look at some of the questions. Okay, so how to replicate and attach app volume VMD case to cloud desktop. Oh, sorry. Do the app volumes need to be in vCloud vSAN? Can I stand up Windows App Volume Server in native AWS with EBS and attach to the vCloud ESX host? So let me answer each question separately. So if you go into the deployment guide, you'll actually see there's a section on how to export, import VMD case from on-prem to VMC. So the key is that you actually have to export and then import. And then you can use any replication technology. Once you've exported the VMD case, you can use any replication technology to import into VMware Cloud on AWS. Do the app volume need to be on vCloud vSAN? Yes. So if you had a on-prem app volume deployment, I would not, let's say your app volume manager is on-prem, I would not advise stretching that. I don't even think that's a supported configuration. That's what this question is asking about. Can I stand up Windows App Volume servers in native AWS with EBS and attach to the vCloud ESX host? Yes, you can actually you can stand up App Volume Manager in native AWS EC2, right? But your VMD case, your app stack, will need to sit in VMC in order for Horizon 7 to work properly. Okay, so next question. Do you ever plan to support manual desktop pools in VMC? It actually is supported. It was something that we didn't support a while back because we didn't think there was a use case. But then someone actually gave us feedback and gave us a really good use case. So it is now supported. And if the KB doesn't reflect that, then I will update the KB. I apologize if you've seen the KB and it's not, it's not properly reflected, but it is supported. What storage is vSAN sitting on within AWS? So vSAN uses the native storage that's in the i3 host, right? So it just uses the internal the SSD in the i3 host. So if the question is vSAN using EBS? Not when it comes to i3. However, there's a new platform available that's R5, which extends vSAN, the native vSAN support with EBS, the elastic block storage as well. Okay, so what is the cost of Horizon 7? Is it by node or by VM? So Horizon 7 has Horizon 7 on VMC has two components. There is the capacity component, right? So buying the VMware Cloud and AWS capacity for Horizon 7 is the same as just buying the regular VMC capacity, right? So it's by host. For Horizon 7 is priced by user. And so you need to get the subscription license. So it's priced by user. So I guess technically, you can think of it as priced by VM. But there is two flavors. There is a CCU or concurrent usage model, and there's also a NU, which is a named user model. So it actually mimics how Horizon 7 is sold on-prem in the perpetual model. But of course, the difference is in order to run Horizon 7 on VMC, you need to have the subscription license, universal subscription license, or the add-on Horizon 7 on VMC subscription license. So R5 metal instances, yes, are supported with instant clones. So yes, actually, so that support is actually coming very soon. I think probably in the next couple of weeks, we are going to be announcing the availability. We didn't have to do any code changes. It's really just around testing, performance testing, and functionality testing. Will this integrate with Workspace Identity Manager? So Identity Manager, I'm assuming you're talking about VIDM. So yes, so you can use VIDM with Horizon 7 on VMware Cloud on AWS. So it does integrate. So I think I've answered all of the questions. Can a customer deploy? Sorry, the Q&A screen keeps on shifting. Can a customer, so Dan asks, can a customer deploy named user and concurring user within the same pod? No, they cannot. So each Horizon 7 instance pod can only accept one type of license. So you cannot mix named user and concurring user within the same pod. You also cannot, on-prem, for example, you also cannot mix advanced, license with, enterprise license. So it's the same idea, only one type of license per pod. Joseph asks, can Horizon workloads be in the same SDDC as other VMC workloads? So the answer is actually yes. We don't restrict from running a mixed workload, but we don't recommend it. And I think personally, if you have 20 desktops that you just want to stick in a SDDC where you're running server workloads, I think that's entirely fine, right? But if you're talking about several hundred or several thousand, then you need to have your own SDDC. And the reason is because the virtual desktops tend to be very power hungry, very performance hungry, right? So if you're deploying a large number of VDI desktops along with some server workloads, it's fairly likely that the VDI will just suck up all the IOPS performance, leaving very little for the server workload. So for that reason, we don't really recommend it. That's always been our practice. Even on on-prem, we don't recommend the same vCenter running both server and VDI. But of course, you could do it, and I think it's completely okay if it's a small number of them. Did the question about vSphere and vSAN encryption get answered? Sorry, I don't know what that question is, but Horizon 7 does support vSAN encryption and vSphere encryption. I know for sure that it supports vSAN encryption on VMC because VMC supports vSAN encryption. I don't know the answer to vSphere encryption, whether that's actually supported on VMC. So I'll have to look into that. If you feel free to send an email to me afterwards, and I'll get the answer. Can an individual application be upgraded within an app stack, or does the entire stack need to be rebuilt? Sorry, also something that I would have to redirect to our expert in App Volumes group. I don't have that, but please, email me with that answer, and I'll get you with the question. I'll get you the answer. Is there any support for replication failover solution like SRM or Zerto VMC, or between On-Prem and VMC? So no, we don't have that support yet. Rather, I should say that Horizon 7 doesn't natively support SRM. But so if you could use SRM to replicate app stacks, you would just then have to import it back into App Volume Manager. So it would work, but you just couldn't use Horizon 7 to coordinate that replication. But if you were to do it outside Horizon 7 and and import it back into Horizon 7 App Volume, that would work. There was a question about vSphere, whether vSphere would be manageable via HCS. No. So vSphere is not directly manageable. When you say HCS, if you mean Horizon Cloud Service, and whether Horizon Cloud Service can manage vSphere, not directly. Horizon Cloud Service can manage virtual desktops that are running in vSphere, but Horizon Cloud Service console does not manage vSphere, so you couldn't see the activities that are in vSphere, that in vCenter. So it's not HCS is not a replacement for. Question was, are vSphere and vSAN encryption available yet on AWS platform? I believe the vSAN encryption is available. I don't know about the vSphere encryption, but please send me an email with the question. I'll get the right answer for you. Okay, well, I will hold on for another couple of minutes in case there's any additional questions. So my email is age@vmware.com. So first name and then last name, A, G as in George, E as in Edward, @vmware.com. Can OEM partners sell universal subscription license? You know what? Actually, I should probably defer this question to our marketing manager, Ida, who's actually manning the chat. So she'll actually answer the question offline. So Akira, I know you're the one who asked about can OEM partners sell universal subscription license. If Ida doesn't answer the question on the Q&A, feel free to send me an email, and I'll forward your email onto her. All right. Thank you, everyone. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, so any more questions or comments, feel free to email me. Thanks. Bye, everyone.